Welcome to the Edgemere houses. It may look peaceful on the outside, but authorities say inside these walls, residents have lived in fear for years under the reign of a drug-pushing gang called the Regulators.
The gang was brutal, it was violent, it routinely set off flares and fired weapons from the rooftops of the Edgemere houses just to let everybody know that they were around and that they were in control.
Well, not anymore, according to authorities who announced Thursday that the 7 principal leaders have been put behind bars. Law enforcement officials claim the Regulators were running $1 million a year crack cocaine operation, and they were running it like a highly organized corporation, with 24-year-old Gregory Robinson, or Neff, allegedly acting as the CEO, and 26-year-old Soyika Isley, or Suki, as the street manager. Authorities say the two rarely got their hands dirty. That was left to the alleged street dealers.
We'd like to think that we're starting off way ahead of the game by getting these long-term, deeply entrenched narcotics traffickers out of the way.
Over at the complex, everybody had heard about the arrests. Some were relieved to see them gone.
We don't need that here. We've been trying to get this place straightened out. So I don't know, but I'm glad it happened because it's dangerous out here walking at night by yourself.
But others weren't quite as optimistic.
They caught a couple of people, some are to be people to take their place. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter.
Authorities say the Regulators have been operating here for almost a decade, and they claim the gang's alleged leaders, if convicted, are going to prison for a long time, up to 25 years. That's with the help of the state's Organized Crime Control Act. And they claim this is just the first sweep in an effort to clean up the Rockaways. In Queens, Gigi Stone, New York 1.
Welcome to our memories of the past. In the late 1990s, Far Rockaway was dealing with a wave of violence and drug activity that residents said had quietly taken over entire blocks. What unfolded in court years later revealed how organized and deeply rooted one particular drug crew had become, and how law enforcement eventually moved in to dismantle it. According to court testimony and local reporting, the gang operated openly, controlling street corners and apartment buildings while flooding the neighborhood with crack cocaine. Witnesses described a tightly run operation where lookouts were posted, sellers worked in shifts, and intimidation was used to keep residents silent. The gang wasn't just selling drugs, it was enforcing territory. The Rockaway-based crew was tied to multiple shootings and acts of violence, many of them carried out to protect their drug trade. Prosecutors said the gang used fear as a business strategy. Anyone suspected of cooperating with police, or even interfering with sales, risked being assaulted or worse. Residents later testified that gunfire had become so common it blended into everyday life. The violence escalated as rival crews attempted to move in. Prosecutors detailed how disputes over territory often ended with drive-bys and ambushes. Several shootings were linked directly to internal discipline or retaliation. These weren't random acts. They were calculated moves meant to send a message. By the time the case reached court, jurors were confronted with graphic and disturbing testimony. According to the Daily News, witnesses walked them step by step through how the gang operated. From drug packaging to armed enforcement, former associates turned cooperating witnesses, describing murders they said were ordered to maintain control and silence rivals. One of the most striking elements of the trial was how young many of the gang members were when they became involved. Testimony showed that teenagers were recruited early, given small roles at first, and gradually pulled deeper into criminal activity. By the time some realized the consequences, they were already tied to serious crimes. Prosecutors argued that the gang functioned like a corporation, leadership gave orders, soldiers carried them out, and violence was a tool to protect profits. Defense attorneys attempted to undermine witness credibility, pointing to plea deals and reduced sentences. But the sheer volume of testimony painted a consistent picture. Local coverage emphasized the relief many residents felt as the case unfolded. People who had lived in fear for years finally saw those responsible being held accountable. The trial exposed what neighbors had long suspected, that the chaos on the streets wasn't random but organized. By the end, jurors were left with a grim portrait of how drug gangs had reshaped parts of Far Rockaway during that era. The verdicts marked not just the end of a criminal enterprise, but the closing of a violent chapter for a community that had endured years of intimidation, loss, and silence.